Like I've showed some videos of me being able to move everything from ping pong balls to golf balls. I've moved a can, and really what it's like for me is when I get that battery charge, I can almost feel a hum or a vibration in my hands.
Okay, so today we are here with Mr. Ryan. Is it
It's
Desbien?
it's French. It's Desbien. It sounds like
Oh,
Desbien.
Davian. Okay.
Desbien. Yeah,
Oh,
but it's a day in French, and bien is good, so it's very good.
okay, so we're here with Mr. Ryan Davian. He is the winner of the Psy Games Telekinesis division, and yeah, I'm super honored to have him today and hear his story. So Ryan is a lot of things. Like he was telling me before the interview, he said he's a kickboxer, a BMX rider, a motocrosser, a teacher. You said as well.
Yep, and a coach, and I just can't be idle, man. Got to keep moving.
Yeah, yeah, and he's a Psy guy, so yeah, I mean, he's a whole bunch of things, and yeah. So, how did your spiritual journey begin?
So yeah, believe it or not, I actually have notes. I'm a shoot from the hip kind of guy because it always comes off the most sincere. So I did make some notes, so kind of bear with me. I just kind of wanted to start by off by saying, I'm this motocross guy and I'm all these, this fighter and all these things, but in addition to that, I'm mostly love. I'm a big teddy bear, really. And leading with love is, I think, a lot of what helps that psi ability to kind of come through to folks, right? I would also say kind of knowing yourself, knowing your dark side, kind of sitting with your dark side at times, being put in situations where maybe you're uncomfortable, you're having to see your own emotions, your own reactions. Just really, and then, as a fighter, as an athlete, you would know just kind of knowing your body. You know when something's not right. You know when like you're injured, and you know if you can take that injury and keep it rolling, or if like, oh, this one's a good one, I got to sit out for the moment. Just knowing your body. I've never been formally trained by the Monroe Institute or any of these. I want to be, but I always just kind of knew that I had this extra ability. And really, what I would say, really, what it is for me is it's a lot of emotion that's combined with the energy that I'm putting into that emotion, and then that focused intention of that, right? And really across the board, I would put psi as just a category because for me, um, I'll kind of get into it, but for me, probably over the last 5 years, really knowing that it's when I put the same principles that I put to being an athlete. I'm also a professional long driver for golf. Forgot to throw that in. Did that a couple of years ago. But just pushing yourself, right? Trying to find out where your limits are. Um, Being motivated, having that focused intention, having that goal, having the ability to visualize these goals, I think is 90% of the job, guys. And then when you put the actual showing up, the actual intention, the heart matches words, matches actions, you get this combo that just really makes the different things kind of come to life. So for me, I always kind of knew I had pretty darn good precognition. I had been able. I'll kind of go into this. I kind of came with notes. I didn't know what to expect, man. So you have to bear with me. But I just always had this pretty intense precognition. I've always been an empath, which is part of. So I'm also a social worker. I've worked in long-term care facilities. I've worked from everything from kids with autism and physical disabilities, all the way up through death, and hospice care, and everything in between with county agencies. I've just, in addition to being this athlete, I've always been this like helper or light worker, or however you might want to look at it. But I've always had this empathic ability and to some degree telepathic ability to speak with those that may not be able to speak. And to kind of get into that, man, I didn't know, so I wrote like notes. So I'm just gonna kind of roll through my notes if you're cool with it.
Oh, go absolutely. Just yeah, go keep
Because
going.
dude, it's a crazy story. I'm a crazy dude. Like I always consider myself black licorice. Like people really like me or they don't, but I'm definitely my own dude. I'm the own version of Ryan, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so just to kind of first off, I just want to say what an honor it is to be on your show, man. Like I always kind of watch it because I like folks that have the ability to put some sort of an athletic ability compared to with the spirituality, because I think there's just so many levels where those things are just matched, right? If your head's not in the right game, it doesn't matter if you're fighting, if you're racing, or you're trying to take a test. If your head's not in the right place, your actions, your emotions show that, right? And so the ability for an athlete or a master of anything really is that ability to kind of manage their emotions, their energy, along with their mind to get into that place of just the focus, right? And it just is an honor to know a person like you can like you're also aware of that combo, right? Like a lot of people when you just talk to the folks, they kind of separate them, right? Like there's religion and there's spirituality over here, and my sports are over here. You know what I mean? And when you start to combine those and like even meditations, breath work, I on the starting line of motocross, what I always say is my focused whole shot intention, right? When you're on a motorcycle gate, there's a gate that drops, and you like you're waiting to go, and you got 40 dudes all going for a 5 foot plot of land for that first turn into the first corner to be that first guy, the place where you can make the most amount of passes as a start. But you know that everyone's going to be going full speed, and that's probably the most dangerous part of the entire race, right? So that ability to focus yourself, kind of get into that centered mode. What I would say is it's like I take 12 deep breaths. There's a lot of stuff with like, breathing. And that's a lot where the energy comes from, right? Is your breath. So it's just interesting, right? Just I wanted to say what an honor it is to just I just wanted to ask, man, like what I forget exactly which ones you study and like just tell me real quick again. I forget.
I'm sorry, what's the question?
What you study, like what martial arts you're studying. I forget.
My martial arts background. I mean,
Yeah.
I started out in Japan doing judo, and then when I came to America, I wrestled, and then did MMA jiu-jitsu, and then currently I
Yeah.
box.
Absolutely, man. So it's, I guess I use a lot of racing analogies, but I also wanted to throw in some other ones I might be able to, kind of work it in. But, you know, uh, the jiu-jitsu, man, like the biggest thing with that is, it's you have all these different styles of training, right? You have all the different styles of martial arts, right? Motorcycles have kind of the same thing. You have enduro riders and you have trial riders and you have supercross racers and motocross racers, and they're all motorcycles, they're all martial arts, you know what I mean? But you have these different expressions of it, right? And I guess what I was going to lead into is, the same way that anybody that studies multiple martial arts or does multiple things that are similar, like riding motorcycles is similar to riding dirt bikes, is similar to riding BMX bikes, right? Especially when you're talking about similar type tracks. So it's skill sets that transfer across all. And I guess kind of where I'm going with all this is, for me, my life's just a combo of all this, man. I'm trying to be the balance, right? Uh, I'm a big guy that believes a lot in philosophy over religion. I love Alan Watts. He's probably my main basis. You know what I mean? Um, but really, that balance, that golden mean, has been kind of where I like. Like I know I can be kind of aggressive in this. I know my dark side, right? Like I can turn on the fire if I need to, but I also know what that also puts out into the world. So you try to lead with the light, you lead with the love, you show this side. You know that this is here, and you also know how to use it when it's when that balance, right? And I think a lot of psychotherapy, and kind of leading into my education. So I'm a human services, mental health, and counseling degree. Um, I'm also a behavioralist here in Colorado. Um, I worked in a lot of like hyper behavioral facilities for folks with major mental illness. Um, Also kind of that being like on 24/7 of like attack, being aware. Um, Obviously the martial arts kind of help in that, but I think what that also does is it just kind of fine tunes you to feeling your surroundings, being able to not only kind of feel those emotions, but so in Colorado, I'm actually a pretty well known behavioralist in terms of like working with long term care folks that have major mental illness. A lot of time, these folks are like super advanced dementia. They lose the ability to talk. And what's interesting is like through my abilities to kind of read the energies, read the individuals, and to have some degree of telepathy, I'm a pretty good de-escalizer. So from everything from kids with autism to adults with major mental illness, for about the last 30 years. I've been working a lot with behaviors and being pretty well known for being able to almost communicate with these folks that can't communicate non-verbally by not only reading their nonverbal communication, stuff like that, but also being able to kind of communicate with them, for a lack of better words, and just de-escalate situations that put the staff at less harm, put me at less harm, put them at less harm. Um and it's just been an interesting trip, man, because that's been the majority of the abilities, you know what I mean, is
Yeah.
more this empath, kind of being this light worker. And then I had a couple of near death experiences as a kid that also kind of reinforced all that. Like I was saying, the precognition was always there. um I had a big near death experience where I did die on a track in 2015. My mom had just recently passed of cancer, just a couple of months before that, and I was trying to win a championship race for her, and kind of put myself in a really bad position, and had near death experience that, for the best of what I can say, I can show pictures and stuff, but I don't remember anything of that day. But I remember waking up in a hospital and telling them that they didn't find everything, that my leg was broken. They didn't believe me. And I'm like, no, 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 guys, you don't understand. My leg's broken too. But we ended up getting it all fixed. But in that near death experience, having this kind of expanded consciousness with my mom who had just passed, and um, always had been more clinical, always was aware of kind of the spiritual stuff, but always meant more for like a clinical, like, a young, or like more of the like DSM, diagnostic statistical manual, like always kind of wanted to gear more of that clinical side. Um, when I was a teenager, kind of audio started to come in for me, and that also looked a lot like schizophrenia. Do you know what I mean? So there was this kind of like conscious effort in my teens and 20s to kind of shut that off, just because I didn't want to have all this extra. It's an interesting experience, man, because the more I get into it, right, the more I'm finding out I kind of have more than I ever knew.
Yeah.
But I also think it's just a little bit of like believing that I probably could. The same way, the same analogy of like, you don't want to come up short on a 100-foot triple, right? Like if you're gonna send a big jump, you got to know you're gonna make the jump. There's no in between. You just you know you're making it, or you're in a bad spot, right? And I
Hmm.
think that same energy and kind of confidence that I bring with that kind of just mindset has really opened up a door for a lot of these abilities. And also made me like an effective coach. Like I said, I was a teacher for autism kids. I've just really tried to help my community as much as I could. Just knowing, if you've got these weird abilities and you're not trying to make money at it, you're not trying to like be known for it necessarily. Your best place to kind of show these things and be skillful in these other environments, right? So
Right. Right.
that's kind of where I went for a long, long time. Um, and and there's a lot of cool stuff thrown in between. Like I would call out races. I would know when my friends or my family were going to do well. It's funny.
Mhm.
I just have to bring this up. I used to have a big family reunion when more of my family was around. And we would do it in Vegas, right? And my family would have to run time frames on me because I was just so successful in Vegas all the time. I would be, mostly my grandma would pay for some of the breakfasts, but then I would pay for ones where I had really big nights. It's just been all this, just all these kind of verifications, but never really a platform on a professional level, I guess would be the way to show it. The same way I do like a motocross. There's motocross races, you know what I mean? And there's just never really a place to show it and have it have any more meaning than maybe a really, odd coincidence, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And what I would say is, I had that near death experience in 2015. Always kind of studied consciousness and spirituality. I'm multicultural. I'm a social worker. I don't hold a whole lot of hardcore religious beliefs, but I'm aware of so many different religions and how there's combinations, and it's and these different energy types from all these different communities around the world. And I think they all hold value to me. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
one thing that I feel like is really important to me is unconditional positive regard. You know what I mean? I don't have to agree with you. But that doesn't mean I'm going to discount what you believe either, right? There's a
Yeah.
way in your world that you got to that place. So, um, it's an interesting dynamic too, because I think because I'm not the stereotypical kind of Psy guy,
Yeah, you're
You know
not.
what I mean? But it's just such a weird thing, right? Because I'm you know, and I'm aware of like the clinical side of it too. So it's this weird dynamic where I'm aware of it and it's really happening for me, but I'm also aware of like if I were to speak out about this, you know
Mhm.
what I mean, and make it a big thing,
Yeah, yeah.
kind of
Yeah,
where that also might look like, you know what I mean?
yeah, I
And
just want to say, like, man, you are a very high energy guy, and that's a great thing, and explains
yeah,
why you can do all these abilities, But
dude,
I was just gonna say something, Ryan. Like when you said you did kickboxing, I mean, in America, like MMA is like the
yeah,
main combat sport. But when you mentioned that you're in Colorado, it made sense to me. For whatever reason, Colorado has like a big kickboxing like scene there, which I never understood why. Like it's like Dwayne Bang Ludwig has
yep.
a gym there, and like Cowboy Cerrone, like he started out in kickboxing in Colorado. Like I know that, so like it's kind of it's something weird about Colorado with kickboxing. It just
Dude,
it's big there for whatever
it
reason.
I think it's legit because we have the promoters, right? We have the promoters putting on the events for these types of martial arts. So then you get more of a base to be like, well, I want to compete, you know what I mean? So where am I going to go? I went to Cereal Box, you know what I mean? So and that was my training group, and dude, I'm just going to tell you, they had some girls. I just don't even I don't want to get into it, but like these 100-pound girls would just beat the crap out of me straight up.
Oh wow.
I could just like be defending all day, like just never take my hands down. These girls were so fast, and it was just I'm a much more power guy than quick. But anyways,
Yeah, that's really fascinating. Yeah, yeah. So let's go back to your telekinesis journey a little bit. Um, so like, when did you discover that you have like telekinesis?
absolutely. Um, so kind of go. It kind of I was kind of leading into it. So it's a perfect time you asked that. So when I had that near death experience in 2015, kind of brought some different abilities, I guess would be the way that I would say. So kind of getting my head wrong, kind of put like hypercolors, I guess would be the way to put it. I was able to like feel and sense a lot more. Being I would say my energy awareness went from not only like part of this whole thing too is being able to use that energy to heal yourself, right? I will tell you half my body is mechanical, and the ability, and I'm completely tattooed. I have Bushido tattoos. The ability to kind of shut your brain off, and I hate to be like this, but kind of disassociate from the pain, right? Where you separate your consciousness from your body, whether it be for pain or whatever reason. I had to endure that a lot between all the different things that I had experienced. When you're 20 miles out in the middle of nowhere and you dislocate your shoulder and it's in a place that you can't put it back and you got to push your bike back and you learn how to sit with your decisions and sit with your pain and kind of separate yourself and your consciousness and make it through, right? You get through it. And I guess kind of where I'm going with all this is so in 2020 there was a lot of death. As a social worker, I got burnt out. Don't want to get too weird into it, but I do want to talk about it a little bit in terms of the energy. um, in the 12 years that I was a social worker, I sat bedside for about 3,200 deaths. You're looking at about 30 deaths a month in a long-term care facility. So I just saw a lot of death. And what's interesting, right, when you see this, the body does a lot of typical things. I won't go into all that, but where I want to go with this is like if you're the last person that person's kind of sitting with, you're providing that care. They're typically nonverbal. Man, you could feel their last emotions. There were people that would die with like smiles on their faces and surrounded by love. And there were people that maybe didn't make the best choices, and you could just tell in that last moment they were afraid, right? And there's a spark in the back of the pupil that I think's the soul. On countless occasions I saw that spark, just that little bit of orange, that little bit of like soul that was keeping that body kind of pass, and seeing that energy pass, seeing what the whole process just looks like, right? And just how life can look different for so many different types of people. um Getting all this like psychosocial education, all these different religions, meeting all these people. I'm a firsthand experiencer. I don't believe something until I do it for myself. um but just kind of leading into all this, 2020 all to death, I had to meditate a lot to just kind of get myself through. You know, it was to the point where like I'm not really a med person. I'll sit with my pain. Like I said, I can kind of disassociate myself. So I never really got hooked on the pain meds or anything like that through all this. Obviously I'm high energy, you know what I mean? Like I can just kind of buzz myself through it or just put myself to sleep through it and get on the other side. Um, but I guess what was happening is I had a few days of like hyper meditation where I do think I had a breakthrough, out of body experience. I come back into myself, everything's amplified. Within a day of that, I have this experience in Boulder. I don't know if you're familiar with Boulder, Colorado, but it's very, very natural. Energy is a big thing. And so I worked right next to Pearl Street, which is kind of the epicenter. And a person pulled me off the street, was talking to me about my spiritual animals, and I'm starting in on this journey, and I'm like, I'm in my, I'm in my social works, suit and tie. I'm just going down there to get a burrito, and I get this big experience after having this, hyper out of body, powerful experience. One thing leads to another. I really start kind of honing in on these other abilities. That's when I become a teacher. I worked with autism kids. I was also the behavioral person, so I would help de-escalate, and that's really where the telepathy. It was crazy, man, because I can't tell you specific instances or kids, right? But there were so many instances where these kids like kind of being an empath, when people are lying to you, when by body language, all these different versions of when a person's kind of feeding you nonsense, or when they're being genuine and truly in distress, right? And there is this ability, especially with these kids that couldn't talk, to be like, dude, I'm here, like this is it, we've got to make this happen in a way so that we can have the rest of this day go well, or we can get this incentive, or but I wouldn't have to talk to them and they would know and it would work out. And it was uncanny. And that's how I kind of got this behavioral background. So that was kind of where that really amplified to like, oh man, this is really something. And so I, got more of the licenses, did more of the stuff, went back into social work, into the long-term care facilities. Um, so then I will just say, so then the side games come along, man. I'm getting there. I'm getting there right now, right? So side games come along. I hear about it through kind of a weird source, also through YouTube. I saw it and I was like, okay, well, I I know I have these abilities. I've never had a place to put these abilities that didn't seem like it was for money. You know what I mean? And because I had had a few psychic readings. We love ghosts and aliens. And I'll get into that just at the very end. But like, it's always been a part of us, but never really a big amplified part. I got wind of the Psy
I'm
games.
sorry to interrupt you. When you say us, who are you referring to?
Um, I would say my family. So my
Okay.
wife is a little bit like me. Probably not as amplified as I am by any means, but I would say both my sons kind of carry whatever the extra little bit of pizzazz is, especially my youngest son, and my oldest son, more of my actual abilities. It's
Mm.
just I guess that's why I say we, because it's been experienced by my entire family.
Oh.
I guess would be the way. But so when I say we, I mean my family. That's what I mean by
Oh yeah,
we.
yeah.
Um, so we started training for the Psy games. My friend Cheryl, who I've been friends with for a long time, kind of became my trainer. And we broke it down the same way we would like a new type of athletic event, right? Like we broke it down by we found out we like through the testing. So I don't think anybody's really gone through the entire process of what this looked like. And I love to be that guy, especially since I'm not like legacy to anybody. You know what I mean? So for me, the side games were I got wind of this. For me, it was a platform. I didn't have any exposure to like the Monroe Institute or any of these other what seemed to be really great producers of these psi abilities. I just knew I had a little bit. Let's see what it looks like, right? So I applied. Within a few weeks of applying, I got an email back saying, "Well, if you want to be considered, you have to go through these tests, right?" And so what the tests look like is there is five different categories, which were the five get categories they had the games on, and you would do tests. And what it was is the tests were a combination of your overall percentage correct to your number of attempts. Does that make sense? So your overall percentage, and that would put you in a ranking. Um, so I applied for all of them. Like I'm pretty sure I had all of them. And what's funny is we go through the testing. We have 3 face-to-face interviews between meeting with the tech people, between meeting with Hakeem and actually showing him, in person live like we're doing right now that you can produce results. And then another one right before they did it just to make sure that everybody was on the same page, going forward into the games. Um, and I had never been exposed to any of this. I just was shooting from the hip, trying to look up things on YouTube, trying to figure out what the best training modalities were for these games, right? So, getting into the psychokinesis specifically, what I can say is whenever I get amplified, especially in a negative way, I can definitely affect electricity. I can definitely
Oh, wow.
feel like energy coming off me, especially around my hands, my heart, my breath, especially this like upper body channeling, right? And I guess kind of in that, and it's similar to the same way like you breathe out when you exhale on a punch, right? To not only kind of like you're making sure you're using all that energy, right? And you're kind of pushing with it. There's all these things, and um, I guess kind of where this all kind of came to fruition was the actual testing for this ability was being able to keep a dot on a random number generator in a single spot. And I was able to do it, and I still have it for the longest lasting time on the testing chart. But you're able to hold this dot with your mind in one spot through this random number generator through the computer, right? Um, that led into like kind of the normal side wheel, the pin with the tin foil, covering it, uncovering it, working with multiple. Never had been exposed to an igloo wheel. Never knew that existed. Never knew that was a thing. So I'll kind of go into all these things though, if you don't mind. So
Oh,
we also
absolutely.
we
Keep
also
going.
start trying, so we start doing the side wheel, like the tin foil pins. You start working with that. In addition to that, we're using simple like card games to do colors, numbers. So I'm not only trying to see the colors, but I'm trying to call the numbers on them. Kind of a combination of mindsight, precognition. I do dowsing as well. I do like ball and cup, like 3 cups, trying to pick which one has it, doesn't. I've One thing that I want to make sure everyone knows is between my YouTube, actually not my YouTube, that's the one place where it's not, but between my Instagram, my Facebook, and my TikTok, I posted the majority of my training sessions. I show when I fail. I show when I don't. When I have these amazing breakthroughs. I try to show my entire process. I try to show my surroundings. I am an artist. In addition to all these things too, I own a prop making business. I'm not a special effects guy. I'm a prop maker, just to make sure there's a difference. Um, but so I also have an industrial design degree from the Art Institute. I just couldn't find a job with that, so I went back to the psychotherapy stuff for here in Colorado. But I'm also an artist. Um, but I think just kind of working on these things and doing it the same way I would systematically do my training for motocross, right? Like, okay, so once we get to know the track, we're going to go a little bit faster. Once we go a little bit faster, we're going to work on different corners. You know what I mean? We're going to, now that we can get the red, I would say pretty much even back in my Vegas days, I could have at least 60% accuracy. Since the side games and training for the side games, I would say I'm up to about 80%, pretty like eight times out of 10, I'm 80%. You know what I mean? And um, I've been able to have multiple breakthroughs with my mind sight windows, probably within the last month. I show them, they completely come unexpected. It's a crazy experience. I try to talk through my experience as it's happening. But I got 52 out of 52 cards that were the side cards with all the different shapes, colors. Um, it's just been this crazy ride, man. Uh Going back into the so we did all the testing for the side games. We get all the waivers signed, basically agreeing to give our likeness, all that kind of stuff. We have the side games. We have a meeting beforehand. We find out the night before that for psychokinesis we're using the igloo wheel. None of the contestants in psychokinesis had used an igloo wheel before, by the way, which was pretty pretty crazy, right? Like I had no idea it
Wait,
existed.
you said none of the people ever used the Eggly wheel before?
None of the contestants for psychokinesis
Really?
have used the Eggly.
That's interesting to me. I didn't
I
know
mean,
that.
I at least that's what they claimed. So because
Oh,
all the competitors that
interesting.
were in it were talking
That's
about it.
very interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so none of us had
Have
known
they
this.
at least heard of it? Just curious.
No, I mean, I personally had
Really?
not.
Oh wow, that's very interesting. I didn't know that.
So kind of leading into this, right? So I actually did 3 categories. I won psychokinesis. I got second in precognition only because I didn't hit a button fast enough. Um, but no, I'm the dude that won though totally deserved it. Like he was on it. It was so funny. It was a battle back and
Correct me if
forth.
I'm wrong. I interviewed Jeff. Was it yesterday, day before? I can't remember. But
Hardy,
anyways, I interviewed Jeff won the Mind site, right? If I
he
remember
did.
correctly.
He did. He won
Yeah,
the
yeah,
individual, and
yeah.
I got second in mine side only
Oh, you
because
got
I
second
didn't
in
know they
Mind.
were gonna. Huh?
I just so you got so you got second. So you got first, and man, you
Yeah,
almost won it
I
all.
so I was
You
technically I was the
were
overall
almost the
champion.
champ.
I got the most amount of podiums. Yeah,
Nice,
so
nice.
I won psychokinesis. I got second in mindsight only because I didn't know they would have had a black thing. I kept saying it was dark, it was dark, it was dark, and I had
Oh,
never
really? Oh
tested with a
man,
black sheet.
that you're
And
this close.
even the Jimmy guy was like, dude, we're gonna give it to him because I didn't know they were gonna have that color. But that was the only reason I didn't get there. But like honestly that was more of the intuitive kind of mindset. Like I knew what the colors were because I could kind of feel the color. Completely different to what I've been having over the last month where my window's open and it's like back here but it's like I'm seeing it, you know what I mean? And it's just been a crazy experience, man. and
Yeah.
and what's funny is so I actually tested out the highest in dowsing but I didn't do dowsing. I
Oh.
posted some of my remote viewing stuff. I'm a very good remote viewer. As we get more into this, and so I actually won a Supercross championship this year. I won a BMX championship this year. I'm about to win a pit bike championship, hopefully next weekend.
Wait.
Uh,
Hold on. I don't know that industry very well. Like when you say you want a championship, like is it like
a
the
series of
national
races.
title or something? Is it the world
Yeah,
title or is it just a local title? What are we talking about?
it's like a district title. So like
Oh, okay. Excellent. Okay.
it's yeah. So it's RMRA. I race Supercross, which is like indoor stadium racing with like big jumps. I ended up getting the 40 plus championship, getting second and 30. In my BMX racing, I ended up getting a championship. We're probably going to get at least a top 5 championship for pit bike racing. We're going to go to this thing called the Race of Champions and BMX Grands, which is like the big elite race for all the big bicycle racers. And and then we won the Psy Games. It's just been this crazy
Nice,
year.
nice.
So it's
If you don't mind asking,
yeah,
so like, what are your what is your like BMX or motocross accolades? Like, are you like a world class like BMX guy?
it's
Are you really
it's
well known in the industry or?
I would I so I'm mostly known by Monstrous Nightmare. It's a funny thing. It's just kind of been my team name for about the last probably decade and a half, maybe 15, 20 years. Um, I'm primarily motocross and supercross. I'm also an old guy that kind of does it, so I'm also kind of well known. I also did some training with some of the kids that currently race, so I get to know the families. I've always been involved in the industry. I've raced for basically every type of bike, so I've been involved with every local dealer. Just kind of all over the board, especially for motorcycles. I've raced every
So
series there
you
is
are
to race.
pretty well known in that industry.
Oh, I would say that's probably my main thing.
Oh wow,
and
that's
then and
so.
then
So
about
I'm actually talking to a pretty well known motocross
yeah,
guy. I
at
was not
least
aware.
here in like the Midwest, here in Colorado, Utah, Vegas, kind of Kansas,
Wow, that's
basically this kind
cool.
of middle area. Yeah, I would say I'm everyone would know. I'm also the only dude that rides a teal bike. Like
Yeah,
I'm just
yeah,
kind of this artist, kind of oddball. I would say
yeah.
most people know me.
That's cool. So Ryan, I want to go back a little bit to your what really caught my attention today is when you said you experienced like you said you experienced 3,000 deaths or
Yeah,
something like you
yeah,
saw 3,000 people die like that's a that 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 story really piqued my curiosity. So I mean
So you're looking.
like I don't know, like you have all these abilities and they're obviously proven, but like you think that played a big factor in maybe like unlocking psi abilities because like you're sort of around like spirits in a way, right? And you said that
Correct.
you kind of feel
And
their energy and stuff. Like,
it,
could you elaborate on that a little bit more?
I
I'm really curious
so
about that.
yeah, so I was gonna say kind of dude, it's so funny because you keep asking the right questions to my notes, so it's amazing. Um, I do the Psy games. I get 3 podiums. I win psychokinesis. I get second in mindsight, second in precognition. I wish they would have let me do the other ones. I have all these abilities. I get this verification. I just have to say this, man, because from a moto dude from Colorado, for all intents and purposes, I am educated. I have this real 9 to 5 job, but I identify as this moto kind of punk rock, artist guy. Um, Meeting these military generals like Colonel John Alexander, you know what I mean? Like Danny Sheehan. I'm meeting, uh gosh darn it, I just had the names out. uh John Croft. I bent forks with that guy, and I had never attempted to bend forks ever, you know what I mean? Like, we're in there, the person that was teaching us how to do it at that time, because I had just won the psychokinesis, and this was literally the last thing of the day. Following it up was this meet and greet that Psy Games had, and just to do it with him, show it in front of him. And for all intents and purposes, he's probably the closest thing to a real Ghostbuster, right? And I love me some Ghostbusters. I have a Ghostbusters car that I drive. And so to just be able to do this crazy stuff that I had never really attempted, and to just get all this verification, but then to like, oh man, okay, I guess this is part of it now. You know what I mean? It just has led to all these other things, kind of moving past that. I just want to say this too. So I had never been psychic pinged, and Dahlia talked about this. I know that, like, uh, Chris, the other guy that you interviewed with him, Chris.
Fazio?
Yes, they talk about the psychic pinging, right? And so
So,
I
so
had
sorry, the psychic what now?
psychic pinging, where they can kind of like communicate with each other, or like kind of say, hey, I'm thinking about you, kind of thing. Chris Fazio was
Oh,
talking about him and
interesting.
Dahlia's daughter doing that at times, and he was saying that she would be like, just, I'm trying to go sleep, sleep. um the second for the Psy games, they released the YouTube videos, I was getting psychic ping, and then there's no other thing like it. And I've been continually being kind of psychic pinged um ever since that. And I guess, kind of leading into your question, um there's been all this kind of stuff happening after the Psy games. It's been a lot more spiritual. There's been a lot more synchronicities. I literally had a hawk short of fly onto my shoulder that I've lived in my same house. I have some property, but I've lived in the same house for about a decade. Um, you know, I had this hawk that was trying to fly into my garage just to land on me, and I don't know if it was a spirit animal or a sign, but then so many synchronicities. Meeting so many people that were, like-minded, just getting part of this community, and not being the norm. It was so funny, right? Because I used the analogy that I'm probably going to be the Happy Gilmore. And I do think I'm a little bit of the Happy Gilmore of the side games. I can long drive the crap out of it, and when I learned how to putt, things kind of came together. But I'm not the typical. um my analogy is, and to kind of get back into your spiritual thing, and this is kind of where I'm going with it, is in motocross, there's this really big name guy who's won all these big championships, and he's from Colorado, and his name is Eli Tomac, right? And so Eli Tomac trains in Colorado. He trains in a private facility. All these other big motocross racers that ride for all these factory teams kind of train on these same tracks, or they train on these team tracks, and he just does his own thing in Colorado, and has these massive results. And nobody, a handful of people know his training routine, but he's kind of very secretive about it, right? It's kind of a weird dynamic, because I want to go to the Monroe Institute and I want to experience all these people, but I keep, just through knowing my own body, knowing my own energies, trying different things, seeing what works, doesn't work, and then, the same way, kind of a scientific process along with like a training ritual, right? Trying to see what works, doesn't work, putting time aside dedicated to training has really unlocked the doors. And it's just you talked about the spirituality and kind of being around it, right? So I kind of leading up into that same time frame of when I was kind of like turning the audio off, I guess would be the way to put it. I was getting a ton of spiritual stuff, and I almost considered having you meet my wife just because when I say we, it's been a little bit of a two-person ride with us. Um, we had these crazy kind of supernatural experiences. Her mom had passed, and there were some other things with that, and to the point that my wife ran out of our house to her sister's house naked in a bathtub towel because our sinks were turning off and on, the lights were turning off and on, like about as poltergeisty as you can get. Um, and it's an interesting dynamic too, right? Because there is this element of like I'm aware of it and how much of this follows me home from these places, how much of this energy is maybe me absorbing it through my being an empath and then kind of bringing it home, and then all of a sudden I kind of relax, and then it kind of comes out, and then all of a sudden I've got all this other stuff going on. I'm not a I've always been into that, but I'm also afraid of it to some degree because I know that there's a lot more there. Kind of the same way I'm like, well, do I really want to try to learn pyrokinesis? Because then if I really can do pyrokinesis, wow, that's really a thing now. Not only for me, but it's kind of like freestyle motocross, right? Like if a person can do a backflip with a no foot, all of a sudden everybody it's the 5 minute mile, right? Where if you can get to that point, everyone wants to get there, and then all of a sudden you're setting higher standards, right? So for me in particular, just for myself, the same way that I would never go to Vegas every day and try to make a living off being successful gambling, just because I don't believe that's how you should do it, is the same reason that like I'm trying to like moderate where I go with this size stuff, right? Because for me, it's hitting quick, it's hitting hard, it's hitting in all these different areas. But the leading with the love, man, is really the part when I'm honestly, man, when I'm doing it from a place of like, well, what can I do with this, or or anything past like, is this possible? Kind of a Willy Wonka. When I was talking in the side games, I used him in that imaginative process where like you kind of visualize it from front to back, inside and out, and then you kind of express it. So that spirituality thing I think is part of it, and I think sensing those surroundings. So I call it. So I wear a mohawk, right? I do think my biggest spirit animal is a shark, and I also kind of think the mohawk kind of helps me catch up things. I don't know if you watch a lot of the folks that can really perform and show on demand. A lot of them have a movement or a jive, right? I move, I dance. Like my process to get into the zone is to listen to 80s and 90s dance music. And like there's pictures of me in the side games. Like I'm kind of, star lording it out in the corner, dancing. But it's this element of movement, right? And so when I'm stagnant, I'm not getting anything extra from my environment. But when you move or you pace, or like when like Dahlia, I know kind of does this. I know I kind of go back and forth, or I got to be like moving a little bit. You get that gyration, or you get that kind of echo feedback from your surroundings, and you can then kind of feel or sense or even see sometimes, what that looks like. So the thing that was cool about the Igley wheel and the psychokinesis for me to kind of get specifically into what your channel I know is a lot about, is for me, it's harnessing the breath, focusing that energy within, and then kind of flexing it through my body like you would a wave. You know how a wave has, crests and dips, and for me, if I can kind of like focus that energy in and out, and then kind of think about it coming in from my heart and my chest through my hands, I can kind of reservoir it into my hands almost like batteries, and then my palms or my fingertips. I haven't, just straight honest, I haven't really figured out where specifically, but it's definitely my hands in general, my palms or my fingertips or both, that can then like hypersense the stuff around it. You know what I mean? So in the side games, I had the Igley wheel going fast, I had it going slow, I had it going left and right, and I had never seen these things before. You know what I mean? But I knew how the energy flow worked within me. So I stomped it, you know what I mean? And it was
No.
fun and it was great. I make faces, man. I just wish this wasn't the case, but like when my mind sight comes through now, when I do the windows, I have to make this like flexing of my jaw to kind of make the window open. and it's the most ridiculous thing, and it just is the most uncool part of it, but it's just, I guess what it reaffirms to me is that it's like this energy flow, and like different flexing of the body kind of helps it move through, you know what I mean? And you can kind of visualize it, feel it. And so like just earlier this week, I'm kind of over the Igley wheels, I'm kind of over the Psy wheels. I've moved on to big mass objects. Like I've showed some videos of me being able to move everything from ping pong balls to golf balls. I've moved a can, and really what it's like for me is when I get that battery charge, I can almost feel a hum or a vibration in my hands, and you can kind of feel then what's going on around you, and you can almost kind of grab it. You're not, physically grabbing it with your hands, right? But you can kind of feel, okay, well that's where it is, and I'm going to kind of pull it with me. And so I'm not thinking I'm like an 11 or like a Jedi, but where I'm at in my process is I am able to get a hold of those same energy forces and either kind of push them without being anywhere near them. Once again, I show all my videos, I show my processes. I want people to see what's going on for me, because I don't think that the psychic ability thing should be the same way that we think that we want to teach people basic math to get along, you know what I mean, and that should be a right, and just a general thing. I'm not, I definitely think that people should get paid for their time and energy to to become a master of what they are, right, and they charge for that master time. But it's also kind of a thing for me, like if this is like an everything that everybody can do, maybe we should take a little bit less of a hit on that payment side, and let's take a little bit more of a, like, hey, I'm going to just show everybody my process, you guys do what you need to do, but like I'm going to show you everything that works for me. I know I'm not the norm for the psychic community, but like this is my process, this is how it's working for me, this is how it's been successful. I am one of those dudes. I think where I go with that starting line analogy I brought up earlier is that, so on a starting line of a motocross gate, it drops, you're all going for the whole shot. There's this moment where they put the sign up, and you've got 30 seconds to kind of get into the zone, to know you're going to be the first or at least the top three guys, because otherwise you've got so much work to do, you're going to get hurt, you're just in a way worse position, right? And there's this breathing technique, and this focus of like visualizing in your mind before it ever even happens. These other guys, you can sense them, their bikes, it's just this hypersensitive moment. And then the gate drops and you go, and there's nothing else but getting to that point you've chosen first, right? It's that hyper focus, and it's that same thing with a little bit of fun, right? Because if dirt bikes weren't fun, I wouldn't do them, right? If MMA wasn't fun, I wouldn't take punches all the time. You know what I mean? Like, there's an element of like, at least I'm improving myself. I'm better than I was yesterday. Now I know what it's like to take that big hit, so now I know what to do next time to avoid it, right? If I don't want that to happen. And I think that ability to learn and grow and have that hyper focused intention, um, is what really has just allowed all these other things to happen. You know what I mean? And put the near death experience stuff on it. Put the awareness of kind of the metaphysical, and put some bolder natural therapy on it. Put in the social work. Put in the cultural awarenesses, and everything from voodoo magic man to unconditional positive guard, where I've seen hate crimes, I've seen things that should never happen, and you're the one there to try to help that person put the light back into their life when it's nothing but dark, right? And
Yeah.
so it's just this weird ability, man. And I think the biggest thing I want people to know from me is that it's not, it's and I don't think it is for any of us that have these abilities. I don't think it's one thing, right? Like, psychokinesis express is really easy for me. Mindsight has been coming way easier. The precognition's always been a thing for me, but like, the remote viewing I had to kind of get onto and practice with to get really good at it. I wasn't just a dirt bike guy overnight, right? Like, I'm literally half mechanical, because I've made mistakes, and it's the ability to kind of keep moving forward, to practice, and that anybody can do it, man. If the moto dude from Colorado that maybe had a little bit of precognition and empathy, can do it, then why can't we all do it? Why should we put these kind of negative connotations to it? You know what I mean? And it's an interesting fact too, man, because I kind of celebrate the fact that I'm not really religious, but I am very spiritual. I'm very, philosophical. I love like Jordan Crowder, who talks about all these different philosophies, and I love, I'm not set in any one way, right? But I do think that there's morals, right? There's values to things. And I think when your core values are love, compassion, unconditional positive regard, you're not coming with these biases. Everybody's equal. Like I'm a moto dude that's covered in tattoos from Colorado. I have no more relevance. I might have more experience, but I'm not any better or worse than you, man. I'm not better or worse than the person that's having the really bad experience, or the person that's injured, or the millionaire who's getting to make a lot of decisions. You know what I mean? Like that's just not how it works for me. It's a spiritual. I can read your energies. I know when you're lying to me. If you're rich, I can feel your intentions. You know what I mean? Like, and I think it's this weird dynamic that I've been able to kind of just express in my life, that now, especially post sci games, I've had a lot more access to these folks that are more like me. And kind of where I was going with this last little bit is you talked about the spirituality part of it. I had never caught any sort of like negative connotations. I'm the moto dude. I'm kind of the hippie moto dude. I'm unconditional positive regard. I'm gonna help you. If I have the ability to do something for you, I'm gonna do it. Doesn't matter who you are, what you do. You know what I mean? And that was kind of my motto. I was known as the parts guy for a lot of people. Like I would just give out parts if I had them. I'd give you tools. You know what I mean? Just because I wanted to keep people moving, right? Because it's what
Yeah.
I'm afraid of for the side games, man, is if people don't get involved, if we don't get enough traction, there's been series, you know what I mean? But the funny thing is, it's so funny because it is a promotion, right? For all intents and purposes. And it's funny because if you don't have people, if you don't have, you talked about the kickboxing in Colorado. We have the promoters that put it on, right? So then you get this larger community of trainers, you get this larger community of pupils, and you get more people fighting, you get more things because you have more of that ability, right? You have more places to show it off. Colorado for motocross is one of the biggest states because we used to have multiple associations. We have all the big races that come through, so you get a lot of exposure if you're here in Colorado, right? And what I'm afraid of for the side games, if it becomes too elitist, if it becomes too old school, where like people like me are not really accepted, where it's they want the folks that are formally trained. I'm aware I'm a Happy Gilmore, and I don't pretend to be anything else. But it's a weird dynamic because if you don't have the people from all the different backgrounds, you're not going to be able to continue the competition part of it, right? And I think the competition part of it for a person like me, I wouldn't have just put myself out to the world. Hey guys, look at this kind of weird stuff I can do when I'm known for all this. You know what I mean? If it wasn't in this format where it was done by the scientists, it was watched over by the generals. You had real people from the community in terms of like, influencers commentating it. It was the right combination and the right time for me to be like this is the if there was ever a time for me to do it, this would be the time. And I know Jeff kind of talked about this too, like the haters. There's always people talking about the psychokinesis. Our arms were in like a box, guys. Look, when you guys watch the videos, and you can even look on my videos, guys, you put your arms into this box. It was sealed. You look through glass on the top. There was, as much as you could, it was controlled, right? And you had the people watching. You were all on camera, right? Like there wasn't getting around anything that happened. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
and and it's just a weird dynamic, man. And
Yeah. Ryan, I just want to say, I can only go for about an hour, not
yeah,
because I'm running out of time, because I'm planning on interviewing like four more people.
yeah,
My
100%.
streaming thing, I only have like a 5 hour window, so I'm gonna have to go in about 10 minutes or so. I
Yep.
just want to ask you one last question. I just want to say you're excuse me, you are the most high energy person I've ever interviewed. Like, man,
Dude,
you can talk and you just exude this just super energy, man. Like it explains why you can do all this stuff. Like do you sleep at all? I mean,
dude,
like
never. I never sleep. Are you kidding me? What's sleep?
I was gonna say
Dude,
I
dude,
have
okay,
a
I just want to show you. Like, I'm a completely real dude. Dude, Dutch Brothers 911. This is the thing, dude. This will keep it going.
If I don't, I hate to ask people their age, but how old are you?
I'm 42.
42. Wow, wow, that's inspiring. Yeah. No,
Dude,
but
I'm telling you,
I
that's go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say, like, like it kind of explains why you can do all these things. You're just a super high energy guy. You, fortunately or unfortunately, you've been around like deaths and like you've seen it, and like you also been around like autistic people. So you've been around all these
Things that are
interesting
not
individuals.
common, these things that most people aren't exposed to, that's been most of my exposure, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
yeah, and you had near death experiences, of course, and so like I feel like, and you're just naturally a competitor. You're into just high
yeah.
energy activity and stuff. So like all this stuff combined kind of makes sense why you are the way you are and why you can do all these things. Like I was, as I was listening to your story, it was really fascinating, and like you talk so much, I didn't have to even ask
Dude,
questions. You
I'm
just
I'm so sorry. I know your channel. I know kind of you give it a little bit of an open format that's a little bit raw, and you know, I, I just know I'm different, right? And I know
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
not.
and what you did was perfectly fine. Like I think. I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you, Ryan. Like I'm honestly really, really tired today. I had a lot going on, and like, like it's kind of nice that like you kind of took over the show and just talk. And like you said, like I'm kind of like you and Jeff said it best. I mean, I'm a raw guy. You can talk all you want. You can go on, about like whatever topics you want. Like I'm a raw, like transparent guy. Like that's
Yeah,
how I
dude.
feel, man. So like,
That's why I
I
was so
think you were,
excited.
other people may have wanted to you to like, answer, very with short answers and stuff like that. I'm not like that at all. You can say whatever you want on my show. You can,
Dude, and,
like,
and that's why I was so excited to be on your show, man. Honestly, and like, there's so many people in the community that talk so highly of you. Heidi does. Like, I've been able to stay friends with a lot of these people from the side games, and I just want to say one more thing. So, you talked about all the spiritual stuff. A lot of this non-human intelligence, orbs, kind of that phenomena. It's crazy, man. I post videos of that. I have that. So I live north of DIA. And DIA is its own thing, anyways. But I will tell you, dude, we've had everything from like jetpack guys to amorphous blobs to orbs to like single manned aircraft, halo looking things. Like and it's usually when I'm kind of like, hey guys, can you show up? And it's funny because my trainer Cheryl, we just had one that flew over like cloaked, and you could see it like like Predator, like the movie Predator, kind of putting this outline to its shape. Then all of a sudden it went off, and like it's just been crazy, man. Like 2025 has been nuts. Like I was just this moto BMX dude, social worker. I start getting all this exposure. I start getting the psychic pings. I get all these downloads. It's just been this crazy experience, and then now the orbs are part of it. And I met Chris Bledsoe, and it's like, the emotion that he comes with. All I can say is, dude, I don't think we do it in the same way, but it's that same place, that same core place where I think it comes from, because he almost becomes teary eyed a lot when he talks about this stuff because it's so emotional, and it's that same intensity level that whether it's rage or sadness or happiness. And I try to just put the happiness out because it has the highest amount of outcomes in that high energy. You know what I mean? But it's that energy, man, that I think kind of brings the orbs, kind of brings the psychic ability, brings on all these superhuman things, for lack of better words, because the universe knows that if you're going to have that, then maybe it is going to be in the right place, and it knows when you've done your shadow work, right? It knows. I know a lot about myself, both physically, mentally. I've done my shadow work. You have to do it in order to be, a psychotherapist, so you're not putting your stuff on other people, and I think that process, a lot of what these kind of like teachers talk about in this realm too, is a lot of that shadow work, right? And through the psychotherapy process, through just being the sensory overload dude I am, and all of it, it's been a crazy year, man. I just wanted to say thank you for having me on. I know we're gonna wrap up right about an hour, man. I want to
I was
respect
gonna
your
say, right,
time.
I don't. It's not that I don't have to go. It's just that I can't do it on this platform.
Sure.
Over an hour roughly. If
You're
you
dude.
want, like, do you want to go? Do you want to continue on Facebook?
I mean,
What?
I'm cool with rapping, man. I wanted to give you anything you wanted to get from me too. Like I am a weird dude. Like for this kind of realm. I'm not going to be the norm, and I wanted
Yeah,
to answer
yeah,
any questions you might have too, man, because that is my story, and
yeah,
it is this balance of light, man. It's been trying to work through those hard times in my life
yeah,
and having all these great experiences,
yeah.
and finding that balance, man, and
Okay,
that's just been where I've come
let's
from.
let's wrap this particular interview up. Then, like, do you mind going live on Facebook after
Like right
this?
now,
Yeah.
yeah, totally.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So to the audience, I think the Facebook one will do a part two if we can go live. I'm almost 100% sure we can go live on Facebook. We'll go for like, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes or so.
100%.
And um, yeah, Ryan, let us know you said you have a YouTube channel, right? What is your YouTube channel?
So it's oh man, I see it. I take such good care of it. I think it's Monstrous Nightmare Racing, or Rhino Pit Racing. If you look up Monstrous Nightmare
Yes, send it to
716,
me and I'll put it in the description. So,
absolutely, yeah. So right now it's mostly just been the bicycles and motorcycles. I've been kind of debating to put all this other stuff out there with my kind of with me winning the championship and probably retiring this year. I'm gonna be a little bit more cool about putting all this stuff out,
oh,
but.
you're retiring from motocross this year?
Yeah, man. It took me. I won a championship in 2018. It took me 10 years to get there, and then I won a championship this year. It took 10 years to get there again, and I just don't think my body can take another 10 years of big hits. So I'm gonna end, like I won my last event. I won the championship in my last event, and I won my overall championship. I won like the championship race and the actual championship for the series. So it's like it's just time. A bunch of my friends got hurt, so I'll go on Facebook.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, he was to the audience, I will put his YouTube link in the description so you guys can check out this fascinating individual. So okay, well, so I will invite you on Facebook now. So
Cool. I'll jump on the Facebook right now, dude.
okay.
Thanks.